Hello and welcome inside the Parc Fermé for podcast number 697, the Belgian Grand Prix review. This is Todd.
No, Todd, not now.
AKA Negative Camber. You know why I've asked you here.
Must convince the villagers that I'm harmless.
That's exactly what I need to do. Tonight, for your kind consideration, well, you know what we do.
We watch one, then we talk about it. Then we watch one, then we talk about it. Come on, Todd.
It's exactly what we do. Every time there's a race, there's a podcast reviewing that race. But before doing that, I have to introduce my guest tonight, which of course means I have to go all the way south to the Dallas-Fort Worth, Texas area where he plies his skills as the sporting director for Heart of Racing Aston Martin in the IMS series. I'm excited to introduce him. Who is he? Well, he is...
Wrecked from out of the wasteland. He's bad, he's beautiful, he's crazy. It's...
Hello, everybody. This is Paul Charles, the International.
It's Paul. Paul, how you doing?
I'm good. Yep, it's
good.
just starting to cool down here, down just a tick under 100.
Oh, good.
So,
good.
I nearly
Boy, relief.
nearly killed myself in my run this morning, that's for sure.
Yeah. Yeah, boy. It's you might want to put a jumper on.
Yes.
Chilly down there.
Yes, actually, I was thinking about one of those silver suits, you know, from, was it Christmas Story?
Yeah.
Yeah, one of those.
Perfect. Perfect. That'd
Might be my
great.
Halloween outfit this week.
Right. So, Paul, is it taco night tonight? Going to Taco Bell, are you? Or
Well, I wouldn't go to Taco Bell. I don't make my own tacos, but no, it's pizza night tonight.
Ah, okay. Taco. You know, Taco Bell, is it just me or like Taco Bell lately? You know, it's meat and cheese 8 different ways, right? But lately, over the last couple of years, you go to Taco Bell, you could order whatever it is you want to order in the drive-thru, and it doesn't really matter what you order. They just make a bunch of stuff, throw it in your bag, and that's what you get.
And that's pretty, and you'd never know the difference anyway, right?
And you don't know, because you get home and say, where's my 7-layer burrito? Well, I got a quesadilla. I didn't order a quesadilla. Well, that's what you get. I mean, they never get my order right, ever. Because my daughters, they like to go to Taco Bell, and we think, all right.
Get you in the drive-thru, Todd.
Exactly. They're making a production line, making just crap, and whatever they make, they just grab 4 or 5 pieces, throw it in a bag, and they throw it out the window. You get what you get.
Yeah, but truthfully, I've only eaten Taco Bell once in the past 2 years, and it was bad. So
yeah, right. Yeah, I agree.
And I never go through the drive-thru. I still, even though I'm the International with my whatever accent I have now, they still don't understand a word I say through the drive-thru.
Well, when you hit them with taco, I don't know that they will.
Yeah, maybe.
Yeah,
but anywhere I go, really.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, just like, I'm not even going. I'm not going through the drive-thru. I don't care how short it is, how quick it is.
Everybody
Maybe
thinks you're from
Starbucks.
Australia.
Maybe Starbucks are the only people that can get it right. Only every other time.
That's a very international flair at Starbucks.
It is, yeah.
So, Paul, did you get the Belgian Grand Prix watched? I know, first off, I've got to say that your text was alarming Sunday morning.
Yes.
When you sent me a text and said, hey, F1 TV isn't working.
Yes.
Did it start working?
It started working
Sunday night.
A bit halfway through the race, maybe 2/3 through the race, so I had to go watch it again on replay. So it was bad. And it wasn't just me. It was, a bunch of people on the Twitter were stating the fact that they were getting the same messages. It was weird. It's like you weren't connected to the internet, but you were, and it's just anyway. They messed up, and so hopefully everyone got to watch it eventually. Maybe it was better to watch it in fast forward anyway, but it was okay. It was Spa. It was good. It's good fun.
It was Spa. Well, I saw the people taking aim at the race and saying it was pedestrian, boring, desperately dull, and I understand that. But I got to be honest. I said in the tweet, I said, hey, I'd rather watch a pedestrian Spa than a lot of the other tracks.
Right. And you know what? I mean, one thing I noticed, the camera angles they had this year, and I don't know if they're different, were really good.
Yeah, they were.
They really got the essence of speed.
Yeah.
I mean, just when they followed Lewis on that incredible qualifying lap he had, it was like, wow, that was, you could just see everything, the car moving around, and it would just caught the right aspect of the car coming out of a corner. You could really see what was going on, because you look inside sometimes, even in Lewis on his pole lap, and it you don't really see a lot going on, but you look from the outside and you really see the dynamics of the car. And I thought they captured that really well at this track this time.
Yeah, they did. Yeah, and trying to show at the bottom of the entry to Eau Rouge, they had that camera looking back up the hill on a kind of a neat angle.
Yeah.
At least trying to show you elevation change. I thought they did a pretty good job of that.
Yeah, for sure.
For sure. Let's talk about the track for a minute. I was watching Friday practice sessions, and it became evidently clear the teams are trying more wing, bigger wing, less wing, lower wing, smaller wing. Trying different setups, and I'm not taking credit for this observation. Really, they talked about it quite a bit with Ant and PDR and Crofty during Friday's practices about the teams trying to decide whether they were going to trim out the car and go for that Sector 1 and Sector 3 speed, long straights and DRS zones, or if they're going to add a little trim or a little aero downforce and really try to capitalize on Sector 2, Paul. And the point here being that whatever you may lose by being a little more trimmed out or a little more downforce in Sector 2, you could probably gain some of that through the DRS section during those two straights. So as it kind of turns out, you were thinking, well, this certainly would play into Red Bull's hand in qualifying in that high downforce. They've always traditionally been very good at that high downforce in Sector 2, but as it turns out, it looks like they trimmed out for Sectors 1 and 3. And whereas Mercedes kind of maybe did the opposite. They were really playing that Sector 2, knowing that they have the shove in reserve to get them down those straights.
Right.
So, I'm sure it's been that way for some time, but I thought the Sky Sports crew did a really good job of kind of unpacking that a little bit about what teams were, and as the weekend progressed, you could see the teams trying alternate strategies and then arriving at that strategy in either late FP2 or FP3. But it certainly is a factor there.
Yeah, it's a factor, and it's not just there's one answer either, because every car has its pluses and minuses. So what is the correct answer for the Renault team is the incorrect answer for the Mercedes team, right? Depending on your power, how your car handles, how slippery it is through the air. So obviously, if you really trim your car out, then DRS has less of an impact when you're using it, right? But over a lap or in a race, it may generate enough difference to give you a shorter time for a race. But I think, with people like Mercedes who have the shove in the back to counteract some of that drag, they know they're going to be at the sharp end of the field, and they know that they can make some of that gap up very quickly and get themselves gap from the what was that? Did you turn the fan off?
I did. I'm sorry about that. It just dawned on me. I normally turn my fan off before I start the podcast, and had it totally on. And now it just dawned on me. Everybody's listening at home, going,
"What's that noise?
What's that white noise in the background?
Me crazy.
It's driving
is that
me
Lou
nuts.
Reed playing back there?
It is Lou. Yeah.
So your strategy is going to be different where you are where you feel like you're going to be in the pecking order in the race, and what's going to enable you to make passes, what's enable you to qualify well. With Mercedes, they're going to be sharp end. They just need to gap everyone by the first two corners, and then they're gone, right? Which we saw. And Red Bull, obviously, they're trying to counteract some of that by doing something different than the Mercedes team are doing, and to some degree worked fairly well, but they just didn't have a car to compete against them. So I think what Red Bull did maximize what their car could do also. And obviously we saw with Renault, not someone known for straight line speed, but they trimmed their car out and really made some great gains in those two sectors that really gave them a powerful advantage over the rest of the midfield group.
Yeah, and normally, to your point, the track, it is track-specific, chassis-specific, and normally you think, well, hey, look how well Renault did in qualifying. They put down that great lap in qualifying. They repeated that during the race, and you think, well, that's got to bode well for Monza. But there is a track characteristic to it.
Right.
You would expect, well, yeah, okay, low downforce Renault is going to do well in Monza. I would assume, maybe not.
Yeah, I think probably they will, because also you got to think you run a lower downforce setting. That does give you that extra speed in those two sectors. But then in the sector where you need to have that extra grip, you're going to be sliding the tire a bit more, overheating it, wearing it out, etc. So you're going to be struggling a little bit with the tire capacity or length of where the tire is. So at Monza, that is less a factor than even at Spa. So all these things have to come into play. It's not just about one lap pace. It's not all about how racy the car is. It's all of these factors, and you try and figure out the best package for everything.
That's true. Right? I mean, let's say they were on par and they were going to do better. Well, someone else may do better too at Monza. It's hard to know. Yeah.
I mean, we know at Spa, the passing was going to be difficult. So for someone to be able to, that single lap pace was an important factor in the equation, not just, the race pace. So.
Yeah, for sure. Because if you could see this narrative coming out of Friday practice over Ferrari, right? And I thought something that you tweeted was really prescient about the difficulties that Ferrari was having. Certainly, they made a lot about in the broadcast about the lack of shove in the back. Understandable. They were, that was launched them into this frustration or whatever it might be about not knowing what the secret deal that they did with the FIA last fall was, but clearly it had a knock-on effect on the performance. But as you pointed out in a tweet, it's not just the engine. It's not just the shove that was missing from Ferrari's Saturday activity anyway, and as it turns out, Sunday.
Yeah, I mean, it's hard to change a car dramatically, and they went into this season thinking they were still going to have the same engine they had the previous year, right? So, as far as I remember, I'm trying to remember the timeline here, but basically they've had that mindset for a while now, where you develop the car based on what your power characteristics of the engine, and do you make the car a bit more draggy because the power is going to push you through the air a bit better, and then you've got still the benefits of all that downforce. And I think they've got a double whammy here. They've probably got a weak engine at this point. Yeah. And they've got a draggy car that was developed for a very, very strong engine. So that's why maybe they're even looking worse than their other Ferrari engined Formula One teams right now, which we saw in the race. They're struggling to stay ahead of the Haas cars.
Yeah, exactly. Getting beat by customers.
Yeah.
Well, let's talk about the race and how it unfolded at Spa-Francorchamps in Belgium. There was a little hint of possible rain on Sunday. That didn't come to fruition, so it didn't play a factor. As it turns out, that would have been nice if it did, because it would have livened up the race considerably. Yeah. It was a pretty straightforward affair. There was some good midfield battles, though, that I was enjoying watching. We'll start out with Mercedes. Lewis Hamilton taking his 89th win, fourth time at Spa. He's just a couple of race wins away from Schumacher's record in a pole to a victory, led every single lap. That is, the Mercedes now led every single lap in 30 races. So far.
Ouch. Hey, do you remember when Bottas had a shot at the championship?
Yeah.
3 weeks ago, but it sounds like
I think that was like just some discussions out of testing. That's when he had a shot at it. After the first race, it was pretty much over. I mean, Lewis has his foot on the back of the championship by all measure now. So crazy. Nearly 50 points ahead. Yeah, it's punishing. And I did, there's one thing I appreciated about Martin Brundle during the broadcast on Sky. He was saying, hey, you're going to have to give him a wheel, give him something. I mean, you got to go after him. And right after the start, Martin was kind of, come on, Valtteri, get up there. You can't give him 2 seconds on this thing. You got to get up there and take the fight to him,
Yeah.
You can't just fall in behind it, Lewis, and then hope later that you'll be able to pass him. And you're going to have to fight. I mean, we give Nico Rosberg a hard time, but he's one of the guys that absolutely rattled Lewis's cage, at least, and took the fight to him, and it wasn't pretty, but it's what it took.
Yeah, and I don't know what's going to take for Valtteri. We saw Biddy Bottas a few times, but he's obviously got signed for next year now, so he's protecting his job, I guess, by not being too aggressive, because that can change very, very quickly if there starts to be some kind of issues. But I don't know. I think the only time you're going to see Valtteri really get a little nasty is when he knows he's not going to have a job in Mercedes next year.
Yeah, right. Maybe not renewing his contract finds the real.
I mean, he really has, as much as he doesn't want to admit it or say it. He really has become the Barrichello.
Absolutely. And I've been saying that for a while. Let's talk about Mercedes. Lewis takes the victory, Valtteri Bottas in P2. So it was a 1-2. The only real chance Bottas or Max had was to get Lewis at the start. and if it didn't get it to start at La Source, then perhaps get a tow down that Long Camel Straight into turn 5, and neither happened for either driver. So that meant really Lewis spent the day at that point managing his tires to cruise to his 4th win in Belgium. As I mentioned, 89th win of his career. Lewis radioed that he was worried about his tires late in the race, and specifically the front right. It did bring back some memories of Silverstone, as the Sky Sports crew was mentioning, but he managed to make it work, made it to the end for the win. It was really a pretty straightforward affair. His qualifying, certainly, I mentioned it, mentioned being inspired by the untimely passing of Chadwick Boseman, which was tragic and unfortunate, that weighing heavy on Lewis. He looked up to Chadwick, certainly, and said that was the inspiration for his performance. A great performance by and large. It was interesting because I wasn't quite sure. The thing I like watching about Lewis is on those Friday practice sections, you see him run wide here. He'll run wide off, run off over here. That's just him finding the limits, right, of the car in each corner and figuring out how to assemble the perfect lap for him anyway. So I wasn't quite sure watching Friday, Bottas was thereabouts, setting some quick laps. And I was thinking, yeah, I don't know. Lewis, he's had 4 wins here, but he's had some DNFs here and some difficulty at Belgium, and wasn't quite sure how that weekend would turn out. But come race day and for pole position onward, he was just spot on. Yeah,
I mean, it's interesting. He makes it a whole weekend to get to the point where he needs to really show it. Mm-hmm. Like to that last lap in qualifying, it's everything he's done before that is literally built towards getting to that point and getting the maximum out of it, which, obviously most of the time he does.
Yeah,
with all these poles and wins. I mean, that lap he did, I thought was incredible. Honestly, it was one of the best laps I've seen him do. And I know he says every lap is the best, most hardest lap he's ever done in his life, but I think that one was pretty darn good. And then his start was interesting, and the talk after it, because basically, he came out of you can easily get repassed coming out of Eau Rouge, right? If someone gets a run on you, and he said, "Oh, I got a little sideways coming out of La Source, and that kind of backed me up to Bottas, and was probably a good advantage in the end." And yes, what that does is it stops Bottas from getting the gap away, and then being able to get the run through Eau Rouge and taking that momentum past Lewis. But it wasn't just that, because I actually saw when he was actually going up to Eau Rouge, Lewis kind of stalled just a little bit and just kept Bottas there. He didn't try and hustle through Eau Rouge. He kept Bottas. I think Bottas may have had to check up just a wee bit, and that allowed Lewis or stopped Bottas from getting any kind of run at Lewis. So Lewis was then able to charge over, out of Eau Rouge and up down the Jimmy Kimmel Straight. Without any hassles. So very
sort of stuffed him just a little bit.
Yeah, just a little brake check, but just a stall of speed that didn't allow any kind of run from Bottas, which is super, super smart stuff, and stuff that Lewis, it's a subtle thing, but something that Lewis probably does very methodically.
Yeah, for sure. And I'd be remiss in saying, I mean, he set in qualifying, he set the lap record. Not just set a lap record, but pummeled the old one by a second. It was a terrific lap. Great lap.
It was, yeah.
Bottas looked a little more vulnerable to the attack of Max Verstappen, certainly, than Lewis did, but he was also able to keep Max behind him all the way to turn 5. Max had his hands full with someone else, so wasn't really able to attack Bottas. And then he really set about, like Lewis, managing his tires for the entirety of the race. Hung in there between 2 and 5 seconds behind Lewis, mostly for most of the race until the very end. Bottas said he had a numb leg. It's the old numb leg
I think
syndrome.
that's been his problem for a long time.
It's the old Bottas numb leg. Hey, Valtteri, can I recommend some Tempur-Pedic or a MyPillow or something? I don't know what's going on there. So anyway, the safety car period threw a bit of a wrench in the works as it changed the race really from an attack mode race into a tire management mode. The fact of the matter is, Paul, that safety car comes out, everybody boxes. They normally would have ran on that second stint on those tires for 25, 26 laps or so. Right. As it was, they had to make them last for 34, 35 laps, right? Yeah, so that really changed the complete complexion of that race.
Yeah, I think that really changed everything about the race and why it may became a bit of a stroll and not that interesting, because and maybe people would have charged a little bit harder if we hadn't had the events that we had at Silverstone, where they really got somebody at the end. I think everyone was cautious, and because all three of those drivers, Bottas and Verstappen as well, were kind of in the same mode and the same thought process.
Right.
They really were just managing. No one was going to attack anybody, basically, and they were just protecting their position they were in, and that because pitting and then charging back wasn't really going to get them there either. No. So, as we saw, it was a mighty fight for anyone who did do the extra pit stop or pitted later to fight this way back through the pack, and none of those three were ready to throw their podium out the window for the chance of coming back to get back on the podium again. So
yeah, the length of the track itself makes that a very difficult, strategy. I think in that case, Red Bull's hands were tied. Mm-hmm. Everybody gets a free pit stop, and you manage tires to the end. And it would have been difficult. And I know even the broadcast team were saying, well, box Max late in the race and put on fresh rubber, and then you can come storming back. And it's like, well, not on this track. That's going to be pretty difficult to do.
Right. Yeah.
Despite, the duo Mercedes able to claw 6 seconds lead over Max, pretty much held that on till the very end for a 1-2. Let's talk about Red Bull. Alex Albon, P6. Max first. Oh, I am. In honor of the yellow flag, I didn't know this when I was looking at the camera. I look like I'm a competition caution here at this point. Sorry about that.
I caution you about your shirts.
Yeah, damn you, Tonio. Anyway, Red Bull, Alex Albon, P6, Max Verstappen, and P3. Max had to defend at the start from Daniel Ricciardo, but despite keeping the Aussie behind him, he just didn't have the pace really to break Bottas. And that safety car, as I mentioned, neutered any sort of tricky strategy that Red Bull might have been able to deploy. And, whether it was an undercut, an overcut, it just really neutered the race, neutered Red Bull's strategy to take a possible position away from Bottas. He trundled around at that point, managing his tires to third. Max managed the tires really well, but he ran out of grip late in the race, wasn't able to mount any sort of attack, and then had to hold on to finish 7 seconds behind the Mercs or more. I can't remember off the top of my head. But anyway, tough race for Max. But he did what he could.
Yeah, tough. And I think he's more a victim of the setup, right? If what we talked about earlier, he went with the lower downforce setting, so he was actually going to use his tires up more than the Mercs, who were set with a bit more higher downforce, so they could protect their tires as the tires wore. So he really didn't have anything to fight with, but he didn't maximize what he had. But yeah, as I said, the safety car and its positioning on what lap it came out and kind of put the death knell, and then he kind of charged from any of those guys.
Yeah, late on, I know he said he didn't have any grip, and he was having vibrations on those tires too.
Right.
Late on,
makes everyone nervous.
Yeah, whoa!
Leon's getting nervous. Yeah,
it's the old vibrations.
Yeah.
Alex, a little different situation. He suffered from a medium tire strategy, Paul, with everyone else on hards. You could look at that and say, well, that's crappy. And I get it. I did find Horner's comment about that when they asked him why they put Alex on mediums. This is, well, you do the same thing, you get the same thing, Mm-hmm. So we're going to mix it up and give it a shot. Now, having gambled that, then Alex's results shouldn't be criticized too harshly. Certainly not by Christian or anybody. I mean, they put him on a different strategy. Now, you could argue that Perez and Gasly came back through the field, having stayed out on the safety car, and Albon didn't really make the best use of those mediums to get back up. But again, he wasn't fighting Haas's. He was fighting Renaults and Racing Points, both who were very quick in this race, so it was a little easier said than done to take a set of mediums and get back up there. Ocon got around Alex, though, on that last lap of the race, and cost him a position.
Yeah, I mean, he's still fighting his qualifying pace. Mm-hmm. That's the only reason the Red Bull have to roll the dice. If he's lining up alongside Max, they're probably more likely to give him the same strategy as Max, because why wouldn't you, right? He's there right now. He's there, or should be there, to back up Max, and but because he's qualifying a row behind Max, they're having to do something different to try and do something different, right? As Christian says, if you do something the same, you're going to end up exactly where he started. So
right,
they tried something, and the mediums, he had to manage those mediums quite a lot, so he couldn't attack like Gasly or Perez could.
Right.
So I think he got the most out of the mediums, but he was vulnerable at the end there. But he had to run the mediums the same length as everyone was running the hards, which was a tough call.
Yeah, that's a tall order for sure, but that's where they finished. Let's talk about Renault. Esteban Ocon, P5, Daniel Ricciardo, P4. Trimmed out. Renault set an impressive pace on Saturday, but they were able to convert that into a terrific result with Ricciardo closing in on Verstappen in the closing laps of the race. Dan was able to actually manage his tires through the entire race. It was a pretty lonely race for him, but then on that last lap he said he was dry. He sent it, he said, and he put in a fastest lap of the race on that final lap, and that was a proper big lap from Dan. A terrific result for him, terrific result for the team. Yeah,
do you think Cyril Bitball's like putting in for his pool for instead of the Jelly in the Month Club at the end of the year?
Right.
It's an interesting turnaround. Was he playing a game there with what he was saying at the beginning of the year? Like, yeah, we didn't really develop the car because we were getting ready for the new car and we're just going to run whatever we had last year.
Yeah.
I have a feeling that may have been a bit of a red herring, perhaps, because I think this Renault is overachieving for what I was expecting, and it could be solely protecting Cyril Bitball's job right now. Certainly with the performance we saw here, that's exactly what Renault should be doing right now, and not what we expected it to be doing right now. Yeah, that's exactly right.
Unfortunately, Ocon lost a place with those stacked pit stops, so he lost a spot there. But he was able to mount a late race challenge on Albon, claim that fifth place back, showing that, I guess to this point, you got to be looking at this, or at least this is what I was like. This race showed not only, maybe to your point, is a bit of a red herring or not. Maybe they're making the right development. This is where you would expect Renault to be at least battling by now. Yeah. But it does show that when the car is there, Esteban's capable of running with Dan right there with him, and Dan's capable of putting it up into fourth and possibly challenging for a podium if there's a bobble. It's unfortunate because this is how this relationship should have worked out with Dan, and now Dan's going to McLaren. It's unfortunate.
Right. And you got to wonder what if Dan's second guessing. I mean, this is really early days for this, right?
Yeah, for sure.
But that's the benefit of having a manufacturer versus an independent team, that they do probably have more resources to make gains than even McLaren do at this point.
Right.
McLaren actually, probably don't have anything to make gains right now. But so it's an interesting place that Dan's in. But the good thing, I think, is that Dan, you're not going to question Dan's motives when he's in the car. And he's still got the team behind him, as opposed to what we're seeing with Vettel and Ferrari. It's still a good relationship, and they're all together in trying to get a great result. Now, Alonso should be very happy with what's going on right now.
Right.
I still think Ocon doesn't have the measure of Dan, or he's not there. So he needs this time to, obviously he was out for a year, but Dan, he's a special driver. And you see where he's been and who he's been up against. He's down every year. It seems like he has to fight for his, place on the pecking order. But I'll tell you what, he does an incredible job out there. Yeah. And if Ocon can stay fairly close to him, that's a pretty good job. But Ocon really needs to start beating Dan on occasion as well to help him with his relationship with Renault in the future, because Alonso's come in, and I'm sorry, Alonso is not going to be losing any space either from being out. So Ocon still needs to have that push and get ready to just fight every race like it's his last race.
Yeah. It's not going to get any easier with Alonso there.
Nope.
No. Let's see, McLaren, speaking of them, Carlos Sainz did not start on his outlap to grid up. There was an exhaust. They said there was an engine problem that created an exhaust failure, and it was terminal. They retired. He went right back into the garage and retired the car. Did not start. So bad weekend for Carlos, but for Lando, otherwise, he finished in P7. Lando lost a few places at the start, but as the race developed, he was just kind of running a quiet race, and out of nowhere, you're like, okay, well, he's up to P8, P9, P8. Now he's in P7. It became clear that he was really in heads down mode and managing his tires very well. Lando saved enough tire to go after Albon late in the race, but he couldn't get around the Red Bull driver, but settled for seventh. And given the issues that Carlos had, it's probably a pretty decent result to finish seventh place. If you were worried that Lando was going to have the same engine issue, he didn't. But I thought it was a pretty tight race, all things considered. He was driving pretty hard there.
Yeah, it was a feisty race. I think, if Ocon would have got by Albon a little quicker, then Lando could have sized him up a little bit.
Yep.
And maybe had a shot at it, but because it was a last lap pass by Ocon, he really didn't have a lot of options left to him by the time the race came to an end. But yeah, he was feisty. He was feisty on the radio. The team, I don't know what the team were trying to tell him there, but he was like, I don't care what's behind me. Which is a nice thing to hear, I feel, on the radio. So he's a pleasant guy, but he had his rear up, I would say, for this race, and it was great. I mean, it was good to see him in the car, and he was fighting every lap of the race. So I think still a good result for McLaren.
Yeah.
Maybe they didn't have the measure of Renault here, but it's going to be a nip and tuck between these two teams, I think.
Yeah, Renault certainly tightened things up between the two of them, and that sent a shockwave across McLaren for sure. Another good weekend for AlphaTauri. Daniel Kvyat at P11, Pierre Gasly in P8. Gasly started on the hard compounds, while everybody else around him on softs. He starts on the hards and began. Let me try this in English. He started on the hards and began climbing through the soft compound cars around him. And, after a few laps, he even passed Perez at Eau Rouge, going through Eau Rouge, a very Weber-esque
move. He did, yeah.
There. And the safety car really kind of spoiled his strategy, unfortunately, like it did for so many other drivers. They chose to keep him out for track position, and later, when he did stop, he made his way back through the field on fresher rubber, so it worked about as good as you could expect, and he had to deliver the goods, and he did. So moving all the way back up for Piet, I would say that Pierre was really providing most of the afternoon's great passing.
Yeah, I mean, he did a great job. It's interesting to know what Red Bull want to do with him at this point.
Yeah,
because he's really driving a fantastic season. But do you revisit the Red Bull drive? I don't know, because obviously he was pretty good when he moved up, but I don't think he was ready. But is he ready now?
Right. When's that crossover point?
Where is that crossover point? Because I remember when we heard that Gasly was moving up, and you took the season that he had before he moved up to Red Bull, we're like, I don't know. He was a little up and down. He definitely wasn't consistently fast.
Right.
And so I don't think he was ready at all. But now I feel like he's ready, but does the history of when he was last there play into his mind and maybe be a negative? I don't know. It's a tough call right now. It's a crossover, as you say. And
that's considering that's his only option. He's impressing a lot of people right now in that AlphaTauri. I mean, he may have opportunities outside of the Red Bull.
I don't know where they are.
Yeah, I don't either. But
everything seems to have shuffled its way out at this point.
Right.
You would think that's his best bet, and especially seeing as Albon isn't really, turning any heads right now.
Right.
But I think he's super competitive. He's super motivated, and the foibles that he had before don't seem to be there.
Yeah. Right.
So I think every race I like to watch what he's doing, because I think he's really doing some special stuff in that car. And Daniel Kvyat isn't driving badly either, but Gasly's beating him, and that's what he needs to do, right?
Well, in the race, Dan was on a different strategy than Pierre was. He made way for Pierre late in the race because they were on different strategies. That dropped him back and out of the points. But Daniel did box during that safety car, and that put him at the back. in amongst the pack, and he was basically at that point on the same strategy to everyone else around him. So it was a little more difficult for him. Regardless, the team did well, and Pierre garnered the Driver of the Day award from Formula1.com, which obviously, in my opinion, was justified. It was a great race for him.
Yep.
Not that it was a terrible race for Daniel. He just on a different strategy and didn't play out in the safety car, put him back amongst the Wolf pack, and they're all slugging it out on the same strategy. So a difficult day.
Yeah, for sure.
Racing Point, Sergio Perez, P10, Lance Stroll, P9. Did I mention Lance Stroll?
I want it now!
I did mention Lance Stroll. Stroll actually had a good start. He jumped Perez at the start, tried to manage a similar strategy to everyone else around him, but he was really in tire management mode like everyone else. I think he did a pretty good job in tire management mode, all things given. He was running well into points for most of the day, lost out to Gasly towards the end of the race on those old tires, really couldn't hold him off, Pierre on fresher tires. But again, second race in a row, I think Lance did a pretty good job, all things given.
Yeah,
I'm just not sure what happened to their pace in general.
Right, this should have been a great weekend for them.
You would have thought so.
Yeah, I mean, I really do. So there's something they got wrong here, because all things corrected. Obviously, we know it's got a similar, if a little slower, performance, and should be as strong as the Mercedes team, where the Mercedes team is strong. So yeah, I'm a little confused as to why they did struggle for so much pace, because neither Lance or Sergio could really shake anything up there.
They couldn't.
I mean, yeah. So we'll have to see what happens at Monza. Monza should definitely be a great track for them, but if not, then maybe something in their philosophy is a bit more different from the black Mercedes than we think.
Yeah, that's exactly right. Maybe there is something definitely, I guess, more intrinsically different about that car and that chassis than the Mercedes, although they look similar and they have the same engine or thereabouts. But going to this track and not being able to, I honestly, I thought Racing Point would have been terrific at this track.
We would have thought they'd be fighting it out for at least tops 5 and 6, right?
Yeah,
they were
exactly, and they just weren't. They were just off the pace. Perez, known for his ability to manage tires, but starting him on those used set of softs and then not pitting him during the safety car, to me, a bridge too far at that point.
Right? Yeah, Sergio's good, but he's
no, that was otherworldly.
No one's that good.
Yeah, that was a tall ask for the team to leave him out. And then, it was interesting when they left him out for track position. Then they boxed him like 10 laps later, and that moved him to the back of the pack, So at that point, he had a lot of ground to make up.
And they put hards on him, right? I think. And then I think Gasly was on mediums.
Yes. I can look at my copious notes and tell you. I should have that in my notes anyway. They boxed Perez lap 19 for hards. Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah, and I made a note. Why box now?
Yeah.
So not quite sure what was going on there. So I think honestly, I just kind of felt like the strategy that Perez is on really kind of hung him out to dry.
Yeah, and usually, honestly, the Racing Point have great strategy.
Yeah, they do. Yeah, and that's why I was surprised.
Yeah, so I think there's just a bit of a missed weekend for him, quite honestly.
Yeah,
both the performance and strategy, but Perez can make the most of anything. Maybe he's better not putting on the hards and putting on the mediums because he can make the tires last longer.
Yeah, that's a good point. Yeah, that's a good point. Maybe
Gasly made it work, so I imagine Perez certainly could.
Right. Yeah, it's a really good point. Not quite sure what was going on that run down to Eau Rouge with Perez and Gasly there. How'd you see that, Paul?
Well, I mean, it was like what was that James Dean movie? They're driving towards the edge of the cliff. Who's going to give in? And Perez kind of, on the run up, you would have thought actually Gasly would have been the one that should have given way, but Gasly just kept on it, and Perez gave him room. So obviously they got a little history there at that point when him and Ocon came together going into Eau Rouge. So maybe that kind of just for a split second got into Perez's head. But I thought actually Perez should have had the corner, but Gasly won the corner. So
Right.
But it was great that they both got through. That's the main thing.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah.
So I think they both played fair and didn't do stupid stuff. So that was good.
Yeah, there wasn't much room.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Not room at all. Yeah.
No. All right. Next up, let's talk about Ferrari.
And it's always a big emotion.
It's a big emotion, Paul.
Oof. I'll say. Big emotions wearing me down at this point.
Oh, my God.
Wow.
That's a real bummer.
It's a real bummer indeed.
Yes, it is.
Ferrari, Charles Leclerc, P14, Sebastian Vettel, P13. Leclerc started on the soft tire, had a good start, jumped up 4 places, and then those tires hit the cliff. And without any power down the straights, he was basically left vulnerable to those behind him and sank back towards the back of the grid. That was very unfortunate. Leclerc switched then. They switched him to a 2-stopper, but that didn't work either. I did enjoy Charles's comment very much with Vettel's in the previous race. Charles wasn't going to hung out. He said, okay, well, I don't know, plan B or C, it doesn't matter, but let's pick one and stick to it because I'm not going to run the hell out of these tires and then have you tell me to go to the end like you did to Seb.
I've seen this movie before.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Yeah, very bad race. Vettel, by contrast, did that 1-stopper. That didn't work. He had no tires left. Both drivers were experiencing a serious lack of shove in the back of that car. And the fact is the Ferrari engine hampered their customers too, right? So it wasn't just Ferrari that was suffering. It was their customers. And I got to think, if I'm a customer, if I'm Haas or Alfa Romeo, I'm not that happy about this engine deal with Ferrari. It's the one time you're thinking this could be a liability for the balance of 2020 and 2021. When normally you were thinking, I got an engineering partnership with Ferrari. You're thinking, okay,
maybe
that's a
Gene
liability.
Haas is on the road to Cyril right now.
Right. Or calling Toto and saying, "Oh, you got room for one more?"
Yeah. Tough.
Ugh.
It's. If you got a slow car, I don't care what strategy you're on, it ain't going to work. And right now they got a slow car, and I think it's only going to be worse at Monza, which is going to be. It's painful to see. It's really painful to see for.
Well, they got beat by a customer.
Yeah, handily.
Yeah.
It shouldn't be happening, and it's a dire situation, quite honestly. That obviously this is really showing up how bad that engine power is right now, and I don't know how they can fix it.
Yeah.
The way the rules are, the way everything's built, they just can't change that strategy so quickly to make any kind of impact right now.
Yeah, there's everything's going to hold station for next year.
Right. Engine freeze.
So I got 17 races of this in 2020 and another however many races are next year.
Right.
I mean, if you're Ferrari, you're throwing up in your mouth a little bit.
Pretty much. Yeah, unless they can radically change their approach to the chassis, but if you've literally got the slowest engine, and it's only so much you can do even with the chassis and the aero, right?
Yeah, right.
Because everyone else is doing pretty good with that stuff too, so it's not like everyone else is standing still.
Yeah, namely Honda,
Yeah.
They've turned their program around. Renault looks to turn their program around, certainly from a reliability standpoint anyway.
Yeah.
Doing pretty well. I had these out of sequence. Alfa Romeo should have came ahead of Ferrari because Kimi Räikkönen finished P12 ahead of Vettel. Giovinazzi at DNF. Giovinazzi had that big crash, Paul. He lost the rear end, hit the barriers, and then an errant wheel from his car came back across the track, leaving George Russell nowhere to go. He hits the wheel trying to avoid it and piles it up in the wall. It looked far worse. I was pretty worried there. There was a lot of carnage on that track and a lot of carbon fiber, but thankfully both drivers walk away from that. Antonio said, well, he was on the limit, and he was trying to keep Vettel within the DRS range, and sometimes, Paul, mistakes happen when you're on the limit.
And they are mistakes. I find it hard to believe is that he got wheel spin out of that Ferrari engine, Yeah,
so, right.
So he had to spin it up, and that was all she wrote at that point. But yeah, a mistake is a mistake. I don't care. Everyone's pushing, right?
Yeah.
So that's a nice cop out.
Yeah, everybody's on the limit. Yeah, like you pointed out before we started rolling. Yeah, well, when Lewis Hamilton's on the limit, he turns it into a pole position.
Yeah, half a second pole position gap, and when
Right.
Giovinazzi does it, it's
in the
crash.
wall.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah. It's the difference about being on the limit there. Conversely, Kimi Räikkönen, he loves this track, does well here, 4-time winner here. Kimi stopped during the safety car, and that impacted his. Again, with the water.
No, is my drinking, is it emptying the bottle or not?
Yeah, apparently it was on his right foot.
Why haven't they fixed this yet?
Yeah, come on, man. Come on, Fred. You got to fix his water bottle. He said he had water on all over his right foot. But he did manage to beat the Ferraris, but couldn't get around Kvyat. He really was kind of stalled behind Dan. And at that point, couldn't get around.
Yeah, he didn't have a knife to fight with at that point.
No.
But yeah, no. Great job by Kimi as usual at Spa. So
Yeah.
but to beat the Ferraris, that's something.
Yep. Got that going for you. Haas, F1, Kevin Magnussen, P15, Roman Grosjean, P17. Kevin had a good start, made up a few places, but the two-stopper pole, that was no help for his race strategy. He kept overheating his tires early on. He said, that first stint, he overheated the tires. By the time he got that sorted and cooled down, then he went in, changed for that second stint. Same thing happened despite the compound change. Didn't matter. Overheating those tires. Could only manage P17, unfortunately, for Kevin. So not a good race for him.
No.
I
don't know what to say about these guys anymore.
Well, you get to Haas, you're kind of like,
yeah, they're slow, and it's not, I don't know what to say. I feel sorry for Gene Haas, but I don't feel that sorry for him because I think he made the wrong decision when he started creating that team anyway. But
you and I said buy Marussia.
Yep. I mean, he put himself in a deeper hole and he didn't get any benefit from it, right? But I think Magnussen's a good driver and certainly worthy of his ride. So he's maximizing what he got there. But once again, you can't get any kind of result in a car that's just too damn slow. No. And that's what they got. And collectively, they're fighting it out with Williams right now. So
yeah, that's exactly it. Well, and even Roman Grosjean, he had that power unit change, got a fresh lump, right?
Mm-hmm.
On Friday. He was on a one-stopper. That seemed like the better strategy for them, though. That two-stopper was a death knell. The one-stopper, a better strategy for them. Couldn't make much of it. So
yeah.
Anyway, here's what Gunther said.
The two-stoppers are tough, though, because
they are
at Spa because there's only one sector that really that extra tire grip really helps you out, right? So you still need that ultimate car to be able to fight over a whole lap and these guys were just throwing something into the wall and hoping something sticks, really.
Yeah, and I have those guys flipped. I'm sorry, folks. It was Grosjean at 15, Magnussen at 17. Sorry about that. I had those flipped. So Roman had a better race. That one-stopper was the better strategy for that team.
Roman's going to give you a call in a minute. He's going to be pretty angry.
Yeah. Oi! He's mad. The last thing you need in life is an angry Frenchman. Trust me.
Yes. No kidding.
Not good. Here's what Gunther had to say about it. Quote, I don't have a lot to say today. It was obviously a disappointing result, but not unexpected. This is where we are right now. The only way forward is to get better, end quote.
Yep.
I don't know. Kind of feel like Gunther is bumping up against that Cyril, trajectory with his career path.
Yeah, but what can you say? He's telling the truth. There ain't much more you can say. There's not a lot of hope in the future, so
no.
What do you do?
No, especially if this is the same car they're going to have next year. It's going to be a very painful 2021.
Mm-hmm.
Gene hanging his hat on the fact of that budget cap and those new regs in 2022 are going to change everything.
Come soon enough for those guys.
Yeah, for sure. And then finally, we get down to Williams. Sir Frank, I can't even, there's going to be a point I can't use that anymore. They sold the team.
That's right.
Yeah.
Was Frank even there? Was Claire there?
I don't recall seeing him.
I don't remember seeing Claire. Didn't see Frank.
They're probably sitting on the beach earning 20%. Yeah. They just unloaded
just counting out
thing.
the money.
Woo!
Our plan worked.
Yeah.
The great train robbery right there.
Hey, Dad, would you like another umbrella drink right now? Frank's over there going, bankrolling.
Yeah, now you got Brad in marketing in charge of the team from whatever, whoever bought the team. I can't remember.
You got Brantley.
Blaine
at the
appliance
investment in the venture capital company over there.
Yeah.
Oh boy.
Good luck with that, folks.
I mean, Paul, not that you've ever had to deal with working for a venture capital company or anything.
Oh, no.
No. You've never come across that. No.
Got a great idea, folks. Gonna revolutionize the sport.
It's gonna change everything. We got X amount of million to pour into this baby.
Yeah, we got social media. We got look at Katie in the corner. She's tweeting like crazy. Yeah, that's good. Yeah.
Yeah, at some point, somebody's going to get off their ass and make a buck around here, right?
Make a car go fast.
Right. Well, George was having a decent race. It's unfortunate because I thought he qualified well, having a good race. I honestly, I think he could have taken the fight to Haas and Ferrari. You know,
I think so.
A properly motivated George Russell is a good race, and I think it was great. It was just unfortunate. Wrong place, wrong time. Ended his race, hit Giovinazzi's errant wheel, and that
could have been a lot worse, quite honestly, at that point.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So thankfully, both drivers walked away from that crash, so that was good.
Nicholas, it was interesting with that debris, though, right? I mean, I know they were saying, maybe they were going to stop the race, and maybe they should have, because there was a lot of debris those guys were driving over.
Yeah, there was. But I will say that the marshals did a really good job of getting it removed quickly.
They did quickly, but still, you
had a couple laps to it.
Anything can happen.
Yeah, right.
And it definitely seemed pretty. Yeah, it was all over the place. But yeah, they did clean up very, very quickly.
Yeah, they did. So, kudos to the marshals in the Wallonia Valley. Well done.
Nicely done.
Yes, for Nicholas, he said that from the very start, he said the car had a serious imbalance compared to Saturday and complained about it on both sets of the tires. Car completely imbalanced on both sets, didn't help. So he trundled around down in P16.
Yep.
And do I have that right? I may have that wrong. Latifi, he's P16. Yeah.
Well done, Nicholas.
Well done. All right, let's give away some awards. We tend to do that, and the first award is Pass of the Race. Woo! Yay! All right, who'd you get, Paul?
I don't know. Do you want to go first?
I'll go first. Yeah, you can counterbalance me because I picked the obvious one. I had Gasly on Perez at Eau Rouge.
Yeah.
Yes.
Which was awesome. Yeah.
It was a great. Yeah.
Battle of the who blinks first.
Who lifts? Yeah, it's a game of chicken, right?
Yeah. I mean, Perez didn't make it easy for sure, but it was
right.
Gasly was on a mission, and he executed. It was great.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, and to balance that, so we don't pick the same, what'd you have?
I enjoyed the Ferrari repass with Vettel when Leclerc got by just for a split second, but Vettel, when you're coming down the Kimmel Straight, and he wasn't going to give that position up, and I just thought it was a little feisty, and just with the history right now, and God, when you listen to Vettel talking on the radio to the team, it's just like a broken marriage.
It is.
When you're picking up the kids, you were supposed to be here at Burger King at 5. That's what it sounds like.
Supposed to be at the Burger King at 5. Oh my gosh.
So Vettel just fighting that and not hearing anything on the radio.
Oh, no, in all defense, Paul and I do not know what that's like. Paul and I have been married for 21 plus years, so I just want to, I don't want to give you the impression that we've been hanging around Burger Kings waiting late to pick up our kids. We don't know what that's like.
We've heard things.
We've heard things. We have friends.
So I enjoyed that fight back from Vettel. I did. I thought it was good. And they both got through once again, just like Perez and what's his name? The AlphaTauri guy. Gasly, right? Just like them two, they played well together, but
they did.
Vettel wasn't given an inch. So
at this point, Sub's like
free practice. It's called free practice. Who gives a
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. He's like, I'm done. I am so done.
So done. I still don't think he's going to make the year, but
we'll see. All right, next award's Donkey of the Race. Well, I know who we had here.
And it's always a big emotion.
It pains me. All right, all you people out there telling me I'm a Mercedes hater, a Lewis hater, and all that stuff, and there you are. You're just a horrible Ferrari fan. Yeah, I like Ferrari. I always have liked since I was a little kid. But I have given Ferrari Dunk to the race 2 weeks in a row, folks. So if you're questioning my ability to be unbiased, look, I think Ferrari is just terrible.
Just terrible.
I
mean, I haven't seen Ferrari this bad since they put Luca Badoer in the car.
Yeah, that's right. It was Fisichella and Badoer.
Yeah, I don't know what they did
that
in
era. That was
car. I still want to know what happened back then, but why those guys did so
terrible.
bad. Yeah, it was bad.
That was so bad. This was both Ferraris out of the points. It's been 10 years since that's happened.
Yeah, without any mechanical issions.
Right.
Kicking in. It's purely pace related.
Yeah, it's just
purely
terrible.
pace related. Yeah,
come
terrible.
on, man.
Yeah. Well, I'm going to go a little broad. I'm going to give Giovinazzi the donkey of the world. He made the mistake, and then that little quote you had of him really didn't help him very much at all. Right. So,
what do you think the old man thinks?
This is Enzo Ferrari.
He wouldn't be happy.
Yeah, he's getting out his pea shooter and shooting people in the back of the head right now. Yeah,
not happy. All right, well, that leaves one more award: drive of the race. Good God. Yeah, that's Paul's kind of funk right there.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
Now.
I'm going with Gasly. I'm going to join the chorus of F1 fans who voted him. Yes, the mob. I'll join that.
Mob. You never go with the mob.
I typically don't. No, I hate the mob. I hate mobocracy. I hate it.
Suck, yeah.
Yep.
Well, I'm going to go with Dan.
It's a great pick. I was going to either do Gasly or Dan, either one.
Yeah, Dan had a great. I like to look at the whole weekend, and Gasly was just on fire. He had a fantastic race.
Great weekend.
Dan made the most of the Renault being pretty competitive throughout the weekend, and he was putting down times from practice one, and I just think he was on fire, and it's great to see Dan with the tool, a weapon that he can actually do his Dan thing with.
It's just great to see him have a smile, have positive energy. He gets giddy. It's his personality. I just love that about Dan. He's great like that. I love the fact that Gasly, is kind of Pierre Gasly took a situation that typically could be career ending, and he's completely turned that around.
Yeah.
And you gotta respect the headstrong, the stick-to-itiveness, whatever you want to call it. But he could have folded like a cheap tent, and he didn't. And I respect the hell out of Pierre for doing that, regardless of his personality or whatever. I'm sure he likes curry, and I don't. Whatever. But
you're a bad man.
I know. But it's required by law for all of you British folks to like curry. I think that's
it is. The Queen prefers it. That's
a good chicken vindaloo for you, Paul.
Nah, vindaloo's not my fave.
Okay.
Honestly, it's a bit more spicy than flavorful. So.
Okay.
Yeah, I like to spread it out, a few different things. But I'm not a tikka masala guy either. So.
Okay, fair enough. All right, should we read some mail?
Yeah, sure.
All right,
you've got mail.
Let's do that. Hey, Carl, how are you doing, Carl?
Hey, Carl.
Hingst out there. What is happening in Carl Hingst world? No idea. Hey, listen to this. This talk about stick-to-itiveness.
Mm-hmm.
I wouldn't listen to us this long, but he has. He says, "Good morning, Todd." Well, good morning, Carl. It's actually evening here, but fair enough. This question is for both you and Mr. International. Well, as fate would have it, I have Mr. International here. First off,
I am listening.
Yep. He says, "I continue to love your podcast." That is amazing in and of itself when you find out how long he's been listening. He says, "I look forward to each week's episode." That's amazing, too. Thank you. That's kudos. I've been a listener since 2014. That's a long time.
Yeah.
Long time to be
the
listening,
hybrid
Carl.
era.
That's right, at the beginning of the hybrid era. So you heard me bitch and moan about DRS.
And he's still hung on.
Yeah, exactly. You know how many times...
So much about everything at that point.
You know how many times Carl has heard me say, well, Mercedes has a baked-in advantage. It's like, shut up, Todd. I've heard that 1,000 times. Shut up. I get it. I know, Carl, but there are new listeners, so sometimes I repeat myself and my position, just like me and Paul told Gene to buy Marussia, right?
Right.
Now, for all you longtime listeners, you're sick of hearing me say that, but realize that we have newer listeners who have never heard us say that, right? The whole idea about sometimes it rains on one part of the track and not another, I'm taking credit for it because Grace and I started calling the media out back in 2007 podcast. Go back and listen. And we were
Wasn't
like,
me. I wasn't even on the podcast.
You weren't even on the podcast. And we were saying back then, oh, Grace, did you know sometimes it rains? You know, we were making fun of it back then. So anyway. Yeah. There you go.
Very good.
Says, I've been a listener since 2000. My question has to do with ground effects. Ground effects were banned from the sport a long time ago, and I'm curious as to why they aren't being reconsidered. For example, would a significant reduction in downforce/wing with a reintroduction of ground effects promote closer racing and non-DRS passing? Let me know what you think.
I think
Paul?
he's right. I think he's right. And the truth is, I mean, I know there's been so much going on. There's a lot of cloudy, verbal stuff going back and forth about rules and packages, and the rules are delayed, and the Concord Agreement, etc. So I think it's got lost a little bit. That's actually what the first proposal was from Ross Brawn.
That's
who? Pretty fast. You don't stop and look around once in a while, you could miss it.
There's Ross Brawn right there.
Right. It sounds just like him. Weird.
It does.
But so that's exactly what the first initiative was when the new group came on, was to try and eliminate the dependency on the aero wings and bring in the ground effect. Ross Brawn, very familiar with the ground effect. He obviously is an engineer. He knows how it all works.
There's a lot of pushback by the teams about that.
Lots of pushback by the teams, as always.
Yep.
You know, only because they're involved in their own
interest
motivations.
Yep.
And I think it's been a little diluted even now from what we hoped would happen. You know, back in the days we had ground effect and no front wings at all. You know, you can't disturb the air on the front wing if you don't have them. So that was the most lopsided version of the ground effects cars at that point, and we're not going to go that far. But in general, hopefully the new rule package, even though they've been delayed, is going to use a lot more percentage of ground effect versus the dependence on the wings. And so that should come into play where the cars can run a bit closer, amongst a lot of other things that they're going to be bringing into the mix.
Right. And then he said, P.S., as a fellow IPA lover, have you, Paul, had Bell's Hop Solution? It's a double IPA that I think you would enjoy.
I have not had the double IPA. I have imbibed Bell's quite a bit, actually. Bell's Oberon is a big favorite. It's, not too sassy, but it's a great drinking beer. So I think the Bell's brand and what they put out is very, very high level. So I would definitely seek that out next time I'm there. But I'm with you. Yeah, Bell's a good company, good brewery for sure.
There you go.
There we go.
It gets the big Paul Charsley IPA thumb of approval. That's not easy to get, I mind you.
No, I bitch about most things.
Yes, you do, especially beer.
Especially the beer you drink.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying.
Although you've been doing pretty good recently.
Oh, come on, man. I've been doing a lot of Chimay, a lot of St.
I haven't seen a lot of Corona with your big toe in the picture.
No. I never did pictures.
I know you didn't, but doesn't everyone, when they're drinking a Corona, you always see their feet in the picture? There's a reason for that.
Yeah.
There's a little difference between the taste of your foot and a Corona.
I know.
But anyway.
And I sort of jumped off the Corona and got on the Modelo.
Which is better. I'm okay with that. Yeah.
So, and it's a good beer. I kind of like it. But you've turned me into a beer snob, and then going to Belgium and working for a Belgian company, I'm an absolute beer snob now, and I just love Belgian beers for a host of reasons.
They are great. They're great. So there's different beers, different occasions.
That's right. Different beers, different occasions. Absolutely. So there you have it. All right. Well, that does it for this podcast. That's what we think about this race. That's what we think about the teams and drivers. But I do have to say, and I do have to elbow out a little room here, and I do have to thank all of you Patreon supporters, a few of you who are current supporters, knowing it's a difficult time, and I understand that, and not everybody can contribute, and I understand it, but there's a few of you out there who have, signed up, brand new Patreon supporters, as little as $1 a month, and that's great. And there's a few of you out there that were supporting us that have upped your support per month.
Wow.
And I really appreciate that. It's not massive, but every little, every $1 helps us continue to do this podcast, and I really appreciate it. I know people get tired of hearing me talking about supporting us, but honestly, we couldn't afford to do this without you guys, and we wouldn't be able to do this without you guys. So
that was a tough decision along.
It was.
I don't know when that was. 2-3 years ago?
A couple of years ago.
It was nearly at that point, yeah.
Yeah,
what did we do?
Nearly wrapped it all up and stopped, but we asked everybody, and they said, hey, absolutely keep going. We love the podcast. We'll support you. And so we did all the heavy lifting and server work and changed the name and all that good stuff. So we couldn't do this without you guys supporting us on Patreon. And if you're not supporting us and you do like the podcast, you can just go to our website, theparcfermé.com. On the top right-hand side, it says support us. Click on that, and you can sign up to support us either through PayPal or Patreon. So thank you for that. If you like the podcast, go over to iTunes, give us a good rating, give us a love over there. As always, we appreciate that. And also, if you like the podcast, share it with a friend. Spread the news. Spread the love.
Spread the love.
That's right. Don't just keep Paul Charsley to yourself. Tell a friend about it. Say, hey, I know this guy named the International, and I think you would like what he's selling.
Yeah, he's an acquired taste, kind of like Marmite. But, if you get through the first initial couple of tastings, you'll be all right. You'll like it. It'll grow on you.
Yeah. It's like a Vegemite sandwich.
Yeah.
You learn to love it.
You'll learn to love it. Yeah. And if you don't, you'll just hate it. But
that's right. It's okay. I can't. It's funny. Every once in a while, I'll look at a review or get an email and look. I get it. We're not everybody's cup of tea. I understand that. Totally get that. I wouldn't expect to be. And it's okay to not like us, man. It's totally fine. But for those of you who do, we're incredibly grateful and very, very grateful for your support. I really appreciate it, folks.
And we're nearly reaching 700 episodes. What are we going to do?
I have no idea. I have no idea. We are very close. We're 3 podcasts away from 700 podcasts, and you would think that I would have these big plans and poppers and streamers and stuff like that, so I'm not sure what we'll do. No. We'll have to do something special, Paul. 700 is a big number.
Yep.
I haven't checked on how many millions of downloads we've done, but it's got to be pretty significant by this point.
Yep.
It's a bunch. We've been doing this a long time, folks. A long time.
Yes.
Yeah. So, and for those of you who've been with us for a long time, really appreciate it. For all you new listeners, welcome. And just know we've been doing well with the downshift episodes. I've done well over 700 episodes. I've done 60 or so downshift episodes over the history. So, a lot. So anyway, welcome aboard if you're new. For those of you who've been a long time, like Carl, thank you for listening. All right, Paul, we've got a triple header. You know what we got coming this weekend? We got Monza.
Yeah.
Would you like to share, or should I share, since I'm 9th in our fantasy GP league and you're not on the front page anymore?
I thought the podcast was over. Can we just turn it off right now?
Yes. Our Kingsbridge BCP TPF Fantasy League at fantasygp.com. We're having a great time. At least I am. I'm in the top 10.
Now you are.
Yeah, I'm like Pierre Gasly. I'm right there. I'm in the top 10.
I'll tell you who has a good time. Skip sticking the elbow in me.
Yeah. Skip
really enjoys that.
He does. And Skip over at Kingsbridge BCP, they've put together kind of a breakdown each week, and you can go over on their website. There's a link, but you can go and check it out, and it's great. And just look on Twitter. He posts the link to it and the update, and he updates that for us. So he's got the top 3 and where everybody is. So anyway, I was doing desperately terrible, and I've made a pretty good comeback to the top 10, so I'm excited about that. I think our league is like 9th or something in the league, so we're doing pretty well. We're a tough league.
Yeah, this is a tough league because I keep thinking I'm doing pretty well, but I keep flip-flopping.
Botus and Max.
And every time I get it wrong.
I know. I do the same thing. So anyway, having a lot of fun with that. So kudos to all of you on the TPF Fantasy League. But it is Monza. Would you care to make a prediction for Monza? Is it going to be Botus Verstappen or Verstappen Botus?
It's going to be Bottas Verstappen.
All right, so it's going to be Lewis.
The Mercedes are going to run away with this baby.
Yeah, I think you're right.
For sure. But I'll be in Road Atlanta with my
that's right
team also. So
that's right.
But that race is on Saturday, so I should be
right.
I will be good to go to see Monza, so that's good.
Yeah, that's exciting. You got Darren Turner coming on board.
Yep, Darren Turner. Yeah, Formula Autosport Award winner, and he's I think it was a McLaren guy and test driver, DTM, all kinds of good stuff. So I've been conversing with Darren this weekend, prepared to bring him into the team because it's a 6 hour at Road Atlanta this year.
Right, and tell our listeners though, you guys got a little bit of you got a little correction, right?
Yeah,
going into
so there's the old BOP thing, which everyone hates, which I hate, but with the new car that we have, the Aston Martin, obviously they didn't know what to do with us really, because we missed a couple of races because of the COVID situation, and then we had our fuel issue at Elkhart, which didn't allow us to race. So we finally got our second of the season race in at VAR, and so they're able to look at the data and stuff. So we got a little BOP adjustment, which should put us in the hunt a little bit better. Hopefully for Road Atlanta, it's a good track, I think, for the car, and we're hoping for a good result, and having Darren there is going to be even better. Super nice guy from what I can tell, so very strong driver. So I think our driver lineup is should be fairly even, so pretty strong over a long race. And
so 6 hours you're going to have Darren, and your other two drivers are
right with Ian James and Roman DeAngelis
and Roman. Okay,
right. So I think the pairings work really well. We don't have a fast driver and a slow driver. We have some really solid strength, so the proof should be in the longevity of the race, and hopefully us charging the front at the end.
So be sure to watch the Road Atlanta race this weekend.
Yep, should be on NBC of some kind. So,
and look for the harder racing car. It's an Aston Martin. Should be exciting.
The only Aston Martin in the
race. That's it, and that's Paul's team, man. So you'll be seeing Ian and Darren and Roman. So that's really good. All right. Well, until next week, when we come back to do it all over again and talk about Monza, this is Todd, a.k.a. Negative Camber, saying so long.
That's it, man. Game over, man. It's game over.